So thank you for joining us today for our Lunch and Learn Ditch the Ditty, doing what matters instead of doing it all. I am very, very excited that we have two of the co-authors of Ditch the Ditty with us today, Dr. Lindsey Godwin and Miriam Novotny. Go to the next slide. A little brief overview today. I'm just going to give a very quick welcome and introduction, and then we will get on to Lindsey and Miriam talking about Ditch the Ditty and all that entails. As I mentioned, we're really thrilled to have these two speakers with us today. Dr. Lindsey Godwin is a Stiller School of Business professor at Champlain College and is also the Stiller Endowed Chair of Management and spearheads the David Cooperrider Center for Appreciative Inquiry. So those are some of the components at Champlain College. And that is just a piece of the incredible work that Lindsey does. And I had the privilege of working/interning under Lindsey when I was a student at Champlain College. I got to work at the Cooperrider Center for 2 years.
I had the privilege of getting to intern with Brianna. She needs to switch that.
Gosh. And that was a really incredible time. So I know this is such a side note, but for any Champlain alumni that had never heard of the Cooperrider Center for Appreciative Inquiry, it's located in the Stiller School of Business. It's really interesting. I check it out on Champlain's website. If you just Google like Champlain College, Cooperrider Center, it's a really interesting sort of mindset and concept. And then Miriam, we have joining us a co-author, two of the three co-authors from Ditch the Ditty, and Miriam also does a lot of work in positive organizational development and executive coaching. Currently is a co-founder of Bellflower Street Consulting and is a alum of the Weatherhead School of Management, Case Western Reserve University, where she holds a master's in positive organizational development, a certification in emotional intelligence coaching, immunity to change facilitation, and appreciative inquiry. I won't go into the full bios of both of these wonderful folks, but they're available if you'd like to learn a little bit more. And without further ado, I'm going to pass it off to Lindsey and Miriam to get us started at ditching these ditties.
Thank you, Brianna. It is such a delight to be with you again, and can continue to collaborate with you and to see some familiar faces on here. I'm trying to see if I've seen other students. Maybe I have. I definitely see some colleagues here that I know and lots of new names and faces. So welcome wherever you are joining us in the world. We are delighted to spend an hour with you, as we know that time is our most precious gift. And so thank you for choosing to dive in and be a little curious. I'm pretty sure, like, what are these ditties? Why are we ditching them? What is this thing? And so that's what we're going to dive in, as Brianna shared that, and I'm joined, yes, by my amazing colleague and co-author, Miriam Novotny. Our other co-author, Molly, is in Cleveland doing some other things today and is unable to be with us, but we're thrilled to give you a little peek into what is this world of ditching and ditties. We're going to share just a little snippet of the book with you and dive into this as sort of an interactive conversation, sort of workshop. And so please feel free to use the chat as you want if there's things that bubble up, and know that, yeah, we're going to have some time for you to chime in as well. So we're thrilled. We've been, this has been a labor of love. We're going to share with you sort of a little bit of where this story came from. But we've been thrilled. We were actually recognized as not one of the #1 new release in women's studies on Amazon for a hot minute, which was really exciting. And we were just featured in Inc. magazine. So the story of ditching and ditties is sort of starting to carry on. And for those of you that play Wordle, ditty was the word of the day on Friday, Valentine's Day. We would like to think it was because of us. So we're, we'll see if anybody played Wordle on New York Times Wordle. It was the Wordle on last Friday. So before we dive in, though, and sort of talk about these, we always like to recognize, as we're thinking about what matters and doing it all, we know that you all are doing so many things and you are coming from so many different places. You're working, you've been in meetings, family, just like Miriam and I. You're juggling maybe being a parent and a I'm a professor and working and doing all of these different things. And so we just really want to also sort of honor the fullness that is here on our Zoom screen together. And so there's many people, many divas that have inspired us along the way. Aretha Franklin is one of those people that still continues to inspire us with her work and legacy today. And so on a scale of Aretha, maybe this isn't a check-in that you usually get asked, but on a scale of Aretha, how are you feeling today? So here's some different faces and feelings from Aretha. You can totally be more than one, right? In our multifaceted human existence, we can feel multiple things at the same time. And so in the text chat, we invite you to just pop in, a number or multiple numbers. Oh, Roland, I can see you 3, my friend. I can almost hear you, just sort of the the song and skipping Roland. You make me feel like a 3 Roland when I see you. So 6, 2, and 7. I like the combo there. 2 and 7. Holly is quite a powerful combo. 5. All right. It's 8. Yes, love it. 3 and 8. I love it. Thank you. Yeah. And again, recognizing that this is how you're coming in and where you are, and maybe even you will continue to evolve over the course of the hour together, in terms of your feeling, and how you're how you're navigating the rest of the day. We hope that maybe everybody leaves at least a little bit, maybe more of a 3 after our ditty dishing conversations today. So we'll check in back in with you on that. But to this question, so we want to dive right in and sort of what is a ditty? What is this all about? And so actually, to get us started, I'm actually going to share with you the original ditty story. Like all great stories and tales, sort of like all great superheroes have an origin story, right? That moment that Spider-Man got bit by the spider and got his powers, or the time that, in the Matrix that our friend gets the red pill or the blue pill and sort of gets a choice about different things. Miriam and Molly and I had a lived moment where the ditty became a real thing for us, and where this whole project and this whole work started. So Miriam and I are actually going to take you back to this origin moment. And I'm actually going to read to you a little snippet from our preface of our book that will get you into just what is a ditty, but more importantly, where did this work come from? All right, so I invite you to step with me into the past here for a moment. Once upon a time in a conference room far, far away. So this is the preface of the book. I'm starting right there. Once upon a time in a conference center far, far away, 2 women led a multinational event. After 2 years of organizing and thousands of hours of prep and countless, I'll get right on that, emails, their big day had finally arrived. Like conductors ensuring every note was perfect, they managed every detail of the 3-day event. From facilitating on the main stage for over 800 attendees from over 30 countries to keeping things smoothly running behind the scenes. They had their hands full, but apparently they weren't full enough. Imagine this scene. Backstage, one of the keynote speakers, who we'll call Mike, to protect the innocent or guilty here. 2 women were busy juggling several tasks. Suddenly, Mike turned to one of them and handed them his personal ditty bag, literally a little ditty bag, a canvas bag for carrying personal odds and ends used by travelers. And he said, "Here, hold this. It has my life in it." Now, there were plenty of other people who could have held the bag for Mike, or he simply could have put it down on the table that was provided for just such purposes. There was really no reason for her to hold it, especially because she had about 10,000 other things to do. But being the polite people pleaser she was, she put down her other tasks and held his ditty bag until he retrieved it after his speech, without so much as a thank you. Although the women didn't yet have the wherewithal to decline holding this particular ditty bag, she and her colleague did have the presence of mind to capture the moment. Clearly, they were better at documenting absurdity than at avoiding it. See Exhibit A. And so here's literally the picture of our ditty bag moment. There's Mike and here and the original bag. And so later that evening, they shared the laughable picture with a third colleague who dared to ask them, why on earth did you hold his stupid ditty bag for him? As the trio unpacked the incident together, a mix of emotions surfaced: anger, annoyance, and then curiosity. They began sharing stories about other times they were handed something, literally or metaphorically, that they didn't want to deal with. They discussed what these things were and why they accepted them. And after a few hours of laughter and tears, they realized that this little ditty bag story symbolized much more than it seemed. Spoiler, that was the three of us, right? So that's our colleague Molly, who's not here today. I took the original picture. I took that picture. I'm behind the camera. And Miriam was the one that helped us unpack and was like, why did you hold this ditty bag story? So the tale of the original ditty bag became a turning point for us. It marked a moment when we noticed dynamics in our lives in a new way. We recognized that, and especially as women, we often do things we don't want or need to do. There's many reasons we do this: fear of repercussions, the desire to be nice, the need to seem perfect, or simply the discomfort of saying no. Mike handed his D-bag to Molly in a convention center all those years ago has really just turned into a powerful metaphor for us. We coined the term ditty to describe anything we agree to out of politeness, obligation, fear of upsetting someone, even when we don't want or have to. And so we recognize that with a clear word to identify these moments, we could start noticing when we say yes to things we don't want or need to, and recognizing that ditties can take many forms, from extra projects at work, soothing friends' dramas, being the go-to person for everyone's emotional support, to taking on extra household duties, to just constantly saying yes to social invitations. Ditties come in all shapes and sizes. So with this work, yes, this little picture is worth 1,000 words. For us, it became 48,000 words. We got really curious. And as we said, we started playing with this idea of this ditty bag that had literally showed up in our lives as a metaphor. And again, as we said, sort of defining it as an unnecessary task you don't want to do. So there's two important things in that sentence, right? Unnecessary, so it's not needed, and that you don't want to do it. So unnecessary, unwanted things. And this could be requests from other people, things that don't align with your priorities or values. It can even be internalized, socialized dynamics that don't serve us, that we're going to talk a little bit about. And then, of course, what does this word ditch mean, right? To give up something or to unaccept something you never wanted in the first place. And so we really, that moment, as I said, was sort of our Spider-Man moment, where we just recognize this metaphor of all of the times that we pick up and hold, literally and metaphorically, things for other people. Again, things we don't want to and don't need to. So we got really curious. We got really curious about our own experiences. We got really curious about other people's experiences. We interviewed literally over 100 women around the world we've talked to. And we also dove into the research behind all of this, looking at people pleasing and imposter syndrome and office housework and all of the different things that people had been talking about, both personally and professionally, around this topic of what we have lovingly now called ditties, right? When do we accept ditties? When do we not accept ditties? How do we even determine what is a ditty? But more importantly, how can we ditch them? How can we not accept them? Because, right, the more that we are holding and doing things that we don't want to and that aren't important to us, the more time and energy it takes away from the things that truly are important to us. And so over the remainder of our time together, we want to introduce you to, we've introduced you to the ditty, but not everything is a ditty. So we need to sort of flesh out this idea as when we're really thinking about decision making and navigating all of the asks and tasks that come our way, we found it really helpful to have language like a ditty that we can see those things that we don't want or don't need to, but these other things. Some of the dynamics that lead us to say yes, and then we want to have some breakout conversation, and we have some tips and tricks for you too of just how can we ditch some of these ditties. So I invite you just to take a moment on your own before we dive into some more content. And just reflect on your own experiences. Again, men, women, everybody picks up and can hold ditties. Everybody also can be a ditty distributor. We've given ditties to other people as well. But just take a moment and think for yourself a time that you were handed a ditty. Again, a ditty is something you don't want and don't need to do, and you accepted it. And also a time perhaps when you or somebody else you know were handed a ditty and they did not accept it. So just again, we want to sort of seed you. I think we're going to come back to these stories, but just for a minute, we want to give you time just to reflect on that for yourself before we dive into some more stuff. So I'm sure many of you have lots of stories. We could probably spend the rest of our hour just unpacking and sharing these stories, which is something Miriam and I love to do. But in the spirit of trying to give you some more useful information that will help you navigate recognizing these ditties and also how we might ditch them, I'm going to turn it to my colleague Miriam, who's going to get us into not everything is a ditty. And so let's look at some other things that we have to navigate so we become really more intentional with our time and energy in our decision making. So Miriam, I'm going to turn it to you, my friend.
Thank you so much, Lindsey, and so wonderful to be with all of you today. Yeah, so Lindsey's done such a wonderful job really laying out what a ditty is. And that's what we're trying to, build our capacity to say no to these ditties. But then what are we saying yes to? And this is represented in what we call the 4 Ds of decision making. The bottom one being the ditty is the big no. And so I'm going to take you up to the top of the decision tree and we'll look more at the tree. But the first one is really a delight. And these are these things that, you really want to do, you have the chance to do, it brings you a tremendous amount of joy. And that's just an easy yes for you. Like that's the delight. That's the dream is to be, doing delights. There's another part of our things that we have to say yes to. Maybe it's not something we really want to do, but it is something we have to do. And this is what we call duties or a duty. And we have these scattered throughout our lives, both in our personal life and our professional life. And a duty could be anything from maybe laundry is something that you don't really want to do, but you have to do in order to have clean clothes. So that's a duty. So you have to do it. Or an expense report at work. You don't really like doing the expense report, but you have to do it because it's part of your job. So what we say with these duties is, yep, it is something that you're clearly going to have to do. So when you have a chance to do it with some flair, that makes it more fun for you. Go forth and do it that way. I know our co-author Molly loves to, I won't say that she thinks that cleaning is really all that great, but playing music while she cleans is pretty darn good. So she's found a way to infuse some joy into the duty. The next one is what we call a deed. And deeds are something that on first glance, maybe you don't really want to do and you don't have to do. Matter of fact, you don't. A deed is something you don't have to and you might not want to, but it does offer you an opportunity. And this is the one that we suggest is really important to get clear around what your priorities are, what your essentials are. We have a whole section of a book dedicated to what's your essentials that help you really get clear about these are my values, these are my personal and professional priorities. And by taking on this deed, it's going to give me an opportunity to, enhance my priorities in some form or fashion. So these are the 4 Ds of decision making. And I want to take you over to the next slide, which shows how we use this in a decision tree methodology. And the first question that we open up our decision tree with is this something you want to do? And in many ways, some people aren't all that clear about that. Is it something I want to do? I don't even really know what I want to do. So really just stopping from at the very beginning, is this something I want to do? And you will see throughout the tree pauses as you answer these questions. Is it something I want to do? Yes. And then if Molly were here, she has a way of tilting her head. She'd go, is it really? And you have to do this internal check, go inward, like, you know what? Yeah, it really is something I want to do. And it's going to light you up and it's going to be a tremendous delight. And you go through this process throughout the whole decision tree to get clear around why you're saying yes and what you're saying yes to. And if you don't hit a yes anywhere through the first part of the tree, then you've clearly identified something that is a ditty. And so we have gotten more feedback from people who've been using this tree over the years. And one of the things they continue to point to is that the pause is critical. And when we say pause, it can be something from as short as 1 minute, as long as 24 hours. But really giving yourself permission to really hold the decision that's before you with some spaciousness and, as Lindsey said, intentionality. So this is our decision tree. I don't know, Lindsey, if there's anything else you want to add into this.
No, I think, yeah, that pause is so critical, as Miriam said. And it's something that ironically we don't give ourselves, right? We don't often give ourselves even that 5 minute, 5 seconds, let alone 5 minutes, let alone 24 hours to pause and really sort of, and we'll talk about some different exercises you can do to sort of get clearer and say no to things. But I think, Miriam, too, the other thing that I always appreciate that you're always so good at reminding me and other people too, is that so much of this work and the ditty and the ditching work is yes, it is about getting clear about our no, but it's about getting clear about our yeses too. That really so much of this is, 75% of this tree is about getting clear about your yes, so that you have more energy, more confidence, more motivation for the things that we're doing, and then really clear on that no. So it isn't about trying to drive everything to be a ditty and ditch it. It's about getting that clarity, and that's what we found with even, you'll see the why we've had fun with these words, ditties and duties and deeds and delights, because it helps us to have a language that we can, again, for ourselves, but also in conversation with others, to get more clear about not just what we're saying no to, but really clear about what we're saying yes to.
Yeah, thank you, Lindsey. I think that's such an important part, and the narratives that often accompany what we're saying yes and no to. And I think a lot of the women have just said the quieting of the narrative, like, oh yeah, see, it is a duty, and I'm now like, I'm going to set down this experience of resentment that I have, because this is something I, have to do, and I want to change my mindset. So it gives agency around some of these decisions that people might not have otherwise seen, so that's part of the fun in the D's. And we love alliteration, so let's just get real. Yeah. So yes. So the clarity for yes is as important as the clarity for your no. And that's what, doing, instead of doing it all, doing what matters. So there's this piece then about, if we now know this, then why do we still find ourselves picking up these ditties? If we now see this decision tree before us, what is still influencing reasons that we might say yes to things that we don't want to do or have to do? And we call these things ditty dynamics. We have many dynamics in our book. We have ditching dynamics, diva dynamics, but we're going to spend some time today looking at the ditty dynamics that influence these sort of socialized conditions that kind of influence reasons that we might be picking up things that we don't want to nor have to. And one of the things that we really love about this is that we've personified these dynamics. We've turned them into actual people that we can kind of see moving about the room and moving around us, or in the backdrop or in the forefront. And we do that purposely because it helps to differentiate yourself from the dynamic. Sometimes it gets really heavy if you call yourself, I'm a people pleaser, versus, oh, there goes the people pleaser moving across the room. And, so it allows us to hold it a little bit more lightly, and therefore give us a little bit more space to shift some of our habits that might be that might be initiated in saying yes because I want to, the people pleaser is trying to wave out front and take care of business. So we're going to take a few minutes to go through these ditty dynamics, and then we'll move into an opportunity for you all to do some reflection and conversation with each other. So this is one of my favorites, and she resides full-time in my house of my mind and my surroundings. This is the people pleaser. She is one who prioritizes others' happiness and comfort above her own. She seeks connection and approval through endless efforts, and I mean endless efforts, to be helpful and often at the expense of her own well-being. I'm not sure how many of you can identify with being a people pleaser, but if you have the ability to raise your hand or, thumbs up if you do. I'm like a big people pleaser. There we go. Thank you, Holly. Yeah, it's a thing. And there's a reason for that. There's a lot of research and what we call ditty data. We spent a lot of time in our book doing research around these dynamics. And it's been really interesting as it relates to people pleasing. There are reasons for it. Women are socialized from a very early age to take care of and seek approval from others. And we're talking about like from elementary school age that it's reinforced. And so it becomes kind of part of our emotional and cognitive DNA. When they did some research with women, they found that yes, both men and women do identify with being people pleasing. Having people-pleasing tendencies, but that women identify with it at 54% versus men at 40%. So it's just that it's a more prevalent dynamic for women. Now, the next dynamic, I'm going to turn over to Lindsey and let her take over with this next entity.
Thanks, Miriam. Yes.
Yeah.
The people pleaser lives, she has a spot in my office. She has a spot at home in my house. She follows me around as a shadow. And her close friend is who we lovingly call the perfect pearl. And so this is one who has internalized the message that he or she needs to do everything right in order to be perceived as the best. Perfectionism really is an endless parade of shoulds that fuel her and that often leads her feeling like her tank is empty. So she is often parading around with her people-pleasing friend. They are often, Miriam and I joke that they're often in a convertible driving around together. But the perfect pearl is something too that many of us feel. Again, this can be in our personal life, this can be in our professional life, it can be both. Sometimes these dynamics show up louder for us personally or professionally, different ones in different spaces. And again, just as Miriam said, we really dove into the research, looking at our own stories about this, but again, really looking at, there's just so much data around all of these different dynamics and looking at perfectionism. And again, both men and women definitely can resonate and feel that sense of perfectionism. And again, research suggests that that women more prevalently sort of exhibit the trait of self-criticism, that narrative of things having to be perfect in order to be valued. At 38% of women do not feel that they meet their own standards, especially at work, compared to 24% of men. And same thing looking at, and that's professionally and also then personally sort of meeting those standards. So definitely happens across genders. And as Miriam said, it's just sort of, it's more augmented, it's sort of louder oftentimes for women. So these dynamics are showing up across the board. And again, just in our own lived experiences, especially as women, but looking at them showing up personally and professionally. So this perfect pearl and people pleaser sort of driving around together, and oftentimes they pick up another friend, don't they, Miriam? So, the other dynamic that comes into play, and again, sometimes these dynamics are showing up singularly, sometimes they are singing loudly together, and there is a third dynamic that often creates a complete trio of dynamics here that again lead us to more often than not say yes to things that we don't want or need to because of these dynamics. So Miriam, why don't you tell us about that self-doubting person that follows us around as well?
Yeah, she's not even sure she should get in the car. Like, here we are. She's like, so here she is. So she's in the car. So the self-doubting dame is one who constantly is questioning her decisions, her self-worth, her qualifications, and her value. She really walks around with this, the heaviness of, am I good enough? And therefore doesn't really step up to all the opportunities that are available to her. This dynamic is really prevalent around this decision-making tree for women, like, not even sure that they should be saying yes to an opportunity that's before them. The data shows that, the confidence for girls drops at a really early age. After the age of 4, it drops, like compared to 30% to boys, which is really quite something. And one of the things that one report showed is that women often will not apply for a promotion unless they believe they are 100% qualified, versus men applying when they feel they're 60% qualified. So there is just something, it's definitely walks hand in hand at times with the perfectionist, the perfect pearl. They tend to hang out quite a bit together, and but it's very impactful in how it is influencing women's ability to not say no, because of the fear of, like, well, if I do say no, and also impacts if their willingness to say yes. So these are the ditty dynamics, and we'll now then go ahead and step out and allow you all to have a bit of a conversation with each other to reflect on your own ditty story from earlier. So Lindsey, you want to tee them up for this?
Yeah, we invite you. We're gonna just give you about 8 minutes or so here to give you an opportunity to connect. You've heard lots of things from us coming at you. And so the invitation that we have, although we know the conversation will go where it needs to go, where the energy is in your breakout room, we're gonna push you in breakout rooms. Brianna has the magic button here in a moment of about 4 to 5. So the universe magically knows who you need to connect with today. Thank you, Zoom. And the invitation is for you to reflect back on that original ditty story that you were thinking of, either a time that you picked it up or that you didn't pick it up. And we're curious to sort of unpack and layer on, were any of these dynamics at play, especially in the taking on, that sense of perfectionism, the sense of people pleasing, the sense of self-doubt. And really, we're curious how just for all of this work, as Miriam said, so much of it is giving us awareness and language, is how might increasing and becoming aware of these dynamics, of the fact that we have different decisions that we can navigate, how can that impact how you show up, especially at work? Because I know we're all coming from different workspaces right now. So that's the invitation for the conversation. I will put here in the text chat that so you can take it with you. There's the question in the text chat. And we're going to give you about, again, a quick sort of 8 minutes to get you talking with one another. That's the invitation for the conversation. But again, we know you'll go where the energy is, because we want you to have a delightful conversation. So go where the energy is, and we will reconvene and sort of share out. And then we want to come back, and Miriam and I, to both hear what's bubbling for you and then share some things, some tips and tricks, a little bit about ditching. How can we sort of ditch, and some practices maybe you want to put into your toolbox. So Brianna, do you have the breakout rooms ready? All right, so we'll give you about a minute heads up, but we'll see you back here in about 8 minutes or so. So have a good conversation, and we'll see you back in just a few. And then Brianna, sometimes I don't know if you want to pause the recording just so you don't have to trim it out. It's your call.
That's it. Yeah, that's good.
Sometimes I just pause it. Thanks, Roland. Hi, Roland. It's good to see your smiling face for a moment there. So Michelle, welcome back. Everybody else, he's zooming back in just a moment. So welcome back. It is the magic of Zoom. It brings us back, Zoomerings us, whether we want to or not, I guess. So the rooms just take a minute to close down. And
I like Zoomerang. I haven't heard that one.
Zoomerang is the real word. Yeah.
Sure.
Here it comes. Okay, Sandra, hi Sev, hi Ginger, welcome back. Here comes Steph. Holly, welcome back. Here comes Amy, welcome back. I think, do we have everybody? Brandon, did all the rooms close out? I think everybody's back.
Like it, yeah.
I said Zoomering. I said we were saying that Zoomering will bring us back, whether we want to or not. You're in the middle of a sentence. So we know some of you might have been in the middle of a sentence. You know, some of you, again, might have been able to spend the rest of the afternoon chatting and sharing stuff. But we're very curious just to take a few minutes here to lift up before we dive in and share some takeaways and some practices that we want to put in your toolbox around ditching. But before we do that, Miriam and I just wanted to harvest just to hear sort of some of the things that bubbled up, insights that bubbled up, especially around this question of how can increased awareness of these dynamics and also these different types of decisions, how can they help you and impact you as you show up in work and life. Let's be honest, it is work and life. So anybody, you can raise your hand, you can feel free to use the chat. We'd love if you want to unmute yourself or flip on your video and share with us. We'd love to hear just a couple of share outs of insights or things that bubbled up from your conversation. Let's see here. Always looking, make sure I don't miss hands that are waving. Here. Anybody in that first room, room 1, want to share with us something?
Not all at once, everybody.
Yeah, so, I mean, you know, I call on people. I'm a professor. I've been pause with the rest of them. So, Steph, I see you unmuting yourself. So I'm just going to take that as a sign that you're going to share with us.
Yeah, I'm gonna share.
Thank you, Steph.
So I was in a room with Sev and Norca, and we were talking about a couple of things. Like we talked about energy and like how you can't give your energy to others, like
Yeah.
if it's real low. Like you can't pour from an empty cup.
So true.
And so how important it is to protect your energy. And one of the methods that we talked about is, like, because we're people pleasers, right? So one of the methods we talked about was like pivoting, like telling people like, no, I can't do this for you, but here are some alternatives. Here are some other resources. Here's what you can do. But, not necessarily doing the task. And yes, thank you, Sev, and adding the value of saying no sometimes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I really love the whole concept of energy and looking at it through the lens of energy. You only have, we always like look at it with our staff. We'd be like, you only have, 24 hours in a day and 100 points, and you can't spend more than that. Anything that you go over that, you're into a state of depletion, of stress. And so it impacts the quality of your connection with whatever you are doing and the quality of work you are doing around things that really do matter. So I love that, looking at through the lens of energy. Anything for you, Linz?
Yeah, no, I do too. It's something I talk about with my own kids. I have teenagers. This is a conversation that comes up for us, and definitely, again, personally and professionally, that sense of energy. And we talk about it in the book again, why it's so hard. We often think that saying no is somehow selfish. And really, just as you said, I so appreciate it, stuff. It's like you can't pour from an empty cup. It's the metaphor of, put your oxygen mask on first, right? All of these things, like you can't be helpful to others if you yourself are, as Miriam said, in a state of depletion. And so I love that, Sev, of the reframing of, there's much value in the act of saying no when we're clear about it, when we're clear about the why and the things about it. So thank you so much for that. Roland, I saw you come off from the video. I'm gonna just assume that means you were so excited to share, and I just love seeing your smile. So what you got, Roland?
It's interesting that the family piece came up, because that was one of the examples that came up in our group as well. Was in a couple of different ways. One and this is going to really date me, but back in the day when I read the birth order book and how, certain, depending
I'm
on
a
where
first
you,
child of first children, Roland. I feel you.
yeah. So, and how sometimes just that order, like you being the eldest, there's going to be stuff that comes your way. And it's not always the right person to be doing
Mhm.
whatever's we doing. And then we had another person talk about their teenage son, that it's so ingrained in you to just take over and do it versus having it become like a learning experience, right? Because we want them to kind of, so that's the why, right? Like, we want you to learn how to do this yourself. Like, I don't have to reschedule this appointment. You certainly are capable of rescheduling this appointment, but it's you get into that automatic thing without even thinking about it. So I figured I'd just share that with the group.
Love that.
That Roland. And I think that's so true too, like both at family and at work too, right? That sometimes we jump in or different things, and that's something that we've learned too, both again, how impactful it is to have this language of what is a ditty, but also recognizing ditties are very personal. What is a ditty to me might be a delight to you, right? And so it's not about that this act or this thing. It's like, again, is it something you want to do? Is it something that's important to you? And lots of different stories about how sometimes do we step back, and if we're always jumping in, we're actually sometimes taking away people's efficacy to whether that's a teenager or whether that's a coworker, right? To sort of develop their skills on something. And so how do we create that space? So always jumping in to say yes, taking that pause to create that space, or like, you can do this, is actually sometimes a really great sense of efficacy. And I love Holly has touched on something that we haven't talked on, and it's one of my favorite things, Holly, when you were talking about occasionally that things she's in the text chat here, she says things are offered to us initially, they might look like a benefit or opportunity, and then eventually it doesn't have the benefit. And you are 120% right, Holly. In fact, we have a whole section of the book dedicated to what we call ditty disguises. And the fact that ditties come to us in all forms of disguises. And one of my kryptonite disguise, I shouldn't tell my colleagues that are on, because then they'll know how to get me to do stuff. But is the caped crusader, right? This sense of like, we've all had that of like, you're the only one that can do this. You have the magical power to do this. You like put on your magical cape and like solve this. And it sort of pokes at our sense of, value and worth, that perfectionism. And so oftentimes, sometimes then we end up trying to leap tall buildings and, landing flat on our face instead. So we have our four most prevalent ditty disguises are the Cape Crusader, the Golden Ticket. Maybe, Holly, that's a little bit what you all were talking about. We've all done it too, of like, this is going to be so great for you. Like, this is going to open up doors. It's going to like, it's your golden ticket to the chocolate factory, and at the end of the day you end up just sweeping up someone else's confetti. And it's really, yeah, it's not that. We also talk about the hot potato, the thing that nobody really wants to do, you drawing the short stick, all of that. And we're like, if nobody really wants to do it, do we need to be doing it, is the question sometimes. And then the veiled threat comes at us sometimes too, or we also call this like the apocalyptic movie, right? Like, if you don't do this, like everything's going to crash and burn. And then we end up again sort of in a false catastrophe kind of situation. And so you're spot on. And we talk about how do we get curious to really, again, and take that pause to recognize, how do we recognize the ask behind the disguise sometimes, so that we can get really clear of, is this something I want to do, that I need to do? And if it is, what else is going to come off my plate? Or how am I going to set myself up for success if this is coming on, right? If this hot potato is coming on, what's coming off? So I don't just have a smorgasbord of, unwanted, vegetables on my plate of things to do. Anyway, so so the disguises, Holly, we have all, and there's so many stories in them in the book. So I love that. And because you're right too, part of this work for us is like, this is an ongoing conversation for ourselves around what is important, what is essential, as Miriam was talking about, And really that, what do I want? And that might change over our lifetime, right? Like as we become parents, as we retire, as we take on new responsibilities at work. And so getting clear about what we want isn't a one and done deal, right? It is an ongoing thing. So this idea of the decision tree and looking at this is constantly in flux. Miriam, do you want to share anything else, or if anybody has other things? Because I know we want to share one more quick some things with you as we wrap up our time together. So Miriam, I want to see if you wanted to share anything about what we heard.
Yeah, I really appreciate this last, comment here from Holly. And I think again, that's essential. It's like really there's a whole section dedicated to getting clear around what's essential to you. And I think what you've identified here, Holly, is like priorities change. What was really important for us 10 years ago might not be as important today. And like really giving ourselves the time to really think through like what is important to me now. A lot of people don't know the answer to that question. Like, well, what do I really want? And so it's a really important aspect of the work because it helps navigate the decision tree a lot more easily. So yeah, love this, and I think we should give them now the tricks and tips.
So I know there's so much stuff. We wanted to just leave you all before we close out too, because it's like all these things, well, what do I do? And so here's 3 of our favorite sort of practices. There's lots of them. Again, in the book, there's lots of different ones, but just ones to add to your toolbox today. We've already mentioned the one of the pause. There is so much. It seems so simple, and yet something that we don't do is to pause and again, just give ourselves that even momentary sort of reflection on, is this something I want to do? And is this something I have to do? And then really pausing again, is it really something I want to do? And is it really something I have to do? There is so much in that. So just interrupt what oftentimes is our habitual yes to things and to people. One of my favorite activities that we've adopted from the research, but also colleagues of ours have shared this with us. Trying on your yes and no. We try on clothes. We try on lots of things. We try on cars. We try on how, like we trying on our yes and no, meaning literally sort of when you're presented, especially with big decisions, whether that's at work, at home, again, rather than just sort of jumping, we quickly oftentimes, again, feel like we have to say yes to make other people happy. Try it on and sort of be like, actually live like for a few minutes, if you can give yourself a few hours or even a day, to be like literally in your head, try on like, I've said yes to this. And what does it feel like? Like, right? Does your stomach hurt because you think that you've said yes to this? Try on your no, right? Like imagine that you've said no to something. What is that? And really listen to sort of, there's so much information that we often ignore in our bodies, in our minds. And so really trying it on, even if it's for 5 minutes before you send that email, before you agree to something, or before you say no to something, to try it on, sort of really like wholeheartedly embody what is, imagine that you've said yes, imagine that you sent the email, or imagine that you've said no and that you sent the email, and what does that feel like? It can be very powerful. And then the last trick that we just wanted to share with you too, again, there's so many more, but because we often aren't as, it's like our muscles aren't as strong oftentimes at saying no, it can be uncomfortable, right? And we have a whole section talking about all the different, how can we scale our no, right? Just like all asks aren't created equal, all no's don't have to be given equally. And so there's lots of ways we can deliver a no, and we can talk about that. But first we have to practice with the no, because so often it feels, again, like we haven't put the value in the no that you were talking about, right? So how can you practice with what we call nano nos, right? So practicing building those muscles, maybe around smaller things of saying no to smaller things at work, at home, that you, again, that are unnecessary, unwanted ditties that you want to say no to, and just sort of see what happens. It turns out the world didn't end when maybe you didn't go to that party or that meeting or something, right? And so just trying it on and starting to build your muscle and your comfort with, again, the value of the no, which isn't just the value of the no, it's the value of you and your time and your energy. So anything else, Miriam? And we just wanted to share, we're going to share these slides, the recording with you. If you want to dive, I know we've just sort of touched the very surface of all of the different things that we could dive into in terms of ditching and again, how do you say no and the dynamics of that and all of that that come with it. But if you would like to sort of dive in more with us, you can sign up for our monthly newsletter. That's our website that has information about the book. The book is available hard copy and on Kindle. We have a free book club guide that if it's a conversation you want to take to others, we actually, Molly and Miriam and I, as authors of the book, are getting ready to host a virtual book club over 3 weeks, just sort of a lunch and learn like this over 3 weeks where we're sort of unpack the book together. And especially my wonderful colleague here, Miriam, is an amazing coach, and we consult and work and bring this into organizations and these conversations in to the workplace as well. So we wanted to share all that with you. Anything, Miriam, you wanted to add before we turn it to Brianna to wrap us up as we're at the top of our hour together?
I think we are all set. Just a big thank you to everyone and to Brianna for hosting us today. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Brianna, I know you wanted to tell people about stuff that's upcoming.
Oh yeah, we just have a quick note, still finalizing the details on this, but stay tuned. March 20th at noon, we'll have our next Lunch and Learn with Capoeira. And then the final message is just, you'll be receiving an email within 24 hours or so with a recording, the slide deck, and also a link to the feedback form. That's really helpful for us thinking about as we're building out these lunch and learns and these sessions, anything else that you're interested in tapping into or learning more about. But other than that, I appreciate you sharing your lunch hours with us. And thank you so, so much to Lindsey and Miriam for taking the time to touch the surface of Ditch the Ditty with us and share that with all of us. Thank you so much.
Wishing you all a day full of delights, hopefully. Lots more delights. So thank you for the hour with us. It was great.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.